Hello everybody and welcome to this video. It's the second in the series on A-level English language. So if you haven't seen the first video, check out the playlist, go and watch that one first. Everything that I go through in this video comes from Mr. Bruff's Guide to A-level English language, written by Lindsay Dyer, available at mrbruff.com and amazon.co.uk. So what were we looking at? We were looking at Assessment Objective 1, apply appropriate methods of language analysis using associated terminology and coherent written expression. And we were just really talking in the last video about the fact that just knowing the terminology and dropping it in is not enough. You need to make informed choices about which terminology to use and how to analyse with that terminology. So we started going through the list, and in this video we're starting off with phonetics, phonology and prosody. Now, phonetics is the study of sound. It focuses on how phonemes are created by the tongue, the soft palate, the hard palate, the lips, pharynx, larynx, etc., and the sounds that they produce, such as gutturals, palatals, dentals, etc. Now, phonology is the study of the way sounds are structured and combined to create meaning, such as assimilation, dissimilation, vowel breaking, palatalization, etc. The smallest unit of sound is called a phoneme, and there are 26 letters in the English alphabet, but there are 44 phonemes or thereabouts, and this means that letters cannot actually represent phonemes, so each phoneme is given a symbol to ensure accurate pronunciation. Prosody is the use of pitch, pace, tone, volume, intonation, stress, rhythm, pauses, tempo, etc. that can reveal particular things about a speaker, such as their emotional state, irony, sarcasm, emphasis, focus, meaning, etc., etc. Some of the key terms that you'll need to know are on the screen and also, of course, in the ebook. But how would you put this into an exam answer? Well, you might write something like this. Phonological features such as the alliterative, elegant, expressive and exclusive are featured. The use of alliteration creates a melodic rhythm, thus making the text memorable for the reader. The repetition of death is used throughout the article in the view of writer who does not agree on size 0 in order to get their point across of how life-threatening being size 0 can be. So that's one of the other topics. Now, graphology, bit of an interesting one this, because it's often overlooked by teachers who think it's just far too simple. But that's not actually entirely true. It's only simple if you limit yourself to focusing on describing and labelling the images, colours and font. You see, graphology, when analysed subtly, can be just as impressive as any other linguistic comment. The trick is that if you simply comment on how the graphological features modify meaning and then link it to another linguistic term, you're going to find huge success. For example, layout, presentation, text boxes, lists, bullets, font choices, underlining, italics, colour, etc. can all be linked to semantics and pragmatics in terms of how they impact a reader, especially when linked to power, gender, representation and ideology. Here are some of the key terms. You'll recognise some of them, I'm sure. Some of these skills you will have looked at in English language GCSE. And what will it look like in the exam? You might write something like graphological features such as the choice to use the colour red to connote danger alongside the choice of disturbing images of suffering are used to shock the reader and persuade them to donate to the cause. As you can see in that example, we've put two features together. Now we move on to discourse. Now, discourse is quite simply language that is longer than a sentence, written or spoken, that has meaning and purpose. And discourse analysis means considering the context in order to understand how it affects the creation, meaning, interpretation and reception of the sentence. Discourse structure is generally rewarded quite highly if analysed effectively. And very simply, discourse structure is the recognisable patterns in organisation of a text. This can be easily understood by considering generic conventions, the internal structure of a text, what is the text like at the beginning, the middle and the end, the discourse markers, and how the text is constructed in terms of key words and phrases. Consider the discourse structure of a fairy tale or a telephone conversation as easy examples. All genres have recognizable patterns, and you use those as your starting point. Again, a number of key terms to understand. Some of them you will know, and others you may have to learn. And of course, these are the things you'll be learning in your course throughout the year. What sort of thing would you write in the exam? Structurally, the writer's begun by using a high number of complex sentences due to the fact that the audience are expected to be educated and sophisticated. Okay, what else? Let's have a look at register and code switching. Now, have you ever felt the need to adapt your language to conform to a particular standard or professional, social situation? You would if you were to meet the Queen, hello, Your Majesty, and then a 5-year-old, hello, little one. Register is the adapting of language to suit a situation. There are various registers, and a person can communicate in many different registers in a day, dependent on interactions. Let's think of an example. Imagine a doctor. They might use an informal, intimate register at home, a formal medical register when speaking to patients, and a consultative register when speaking to colleagues. Now, code switching is when a speaker moves between or mixes the variations of language in different contexts, and code switching can occur by accident after spending a significant period of time in a particular context, or because a person wants to be accepted, or can be a manipulative way of gaining something. What would we write in the exam? Something like this. The choice of formal register in the text, evident by the speaker's decision to politely ask, would you like another drink, suggests some social distance in the relationship between the speakers. Now we move on to Idiolect. If you've heard of Vicky Pollard, Ali G or Lauren Cooper, they're all brilliant examples of Idiolect in action. Idiolect is the speech style specific to you and is your unique way of speaking. We all have our own idiolect influenced by our context, our background, age, social class, the audience and the mode. Consider the specific words and phrases someone always uses, and consider the style of their speech, the amount they talk, their tone, their conversational habits, such as interrupting and topic shifts, their choice of sentence functions, and their body language. Idiolect is different to dialect, as dialect is language spoken by a group of people, usually specific to a particular region or social group. What would you write in the exam? Something like, oh, it's disappeared, so I'll just read it to you. It is apparent that the speaker's idiolect has changed throughout the text in an effort to create the right impression in particular contexts. The speaker begins by using academic lexical choices, like significantly, when discussing essay feedback with his teacher, yet in a conversation with friends on the same day, elision and fillers are evident. What do you mean? Next one is accent. You probably know about accent. How we pronounce the words plant, cake or toast is a good example of accent. You might have heard me then and thought, what are you talking about? Cake, plant, toast. Have you ever heard somebody say these words differently? Well, the way words are pronounced is called an accent. Regional accents differ from one another in their pronunciation of phonemes. If you think about the short vowel sound in the north of England for words like bath, whereas in the south the phoneme tends to be elongated, we might say, I'm about to have a bath. Bit of a generalisation, of course, but accent is quite an interesting one. Now, we also have received pronunciation, which is considered to be the most prestigious of all accents, and it's the instantly recognisable, typically British sound, even though it's said that only 2% of the population speak it. Received pronunciation is regionally non-specific, as it doesn't contain any geographical clues about a speaker. But you have to be careful not to stereotype, but do be aware that received pronunciation can reveal a person's social and educational influences. Many people once felt under pressure to adopt the RP accent in order to show prestige, but with social development over time, there is not such an issue with that anymore. It used to be, welcome to the 6 o'clock news. And now we have newsreaders with all sorts of accents. What would you write in the exam? Well, you might write something like, which has disappeared again, I apologise. A non-standard English accent is apparent through the glottal stop in the pronunciation of the words water and butter, and this may indicate that the speaker is of a lower class than his employer. Now we'll have a look at dialect. We've all had the argument about what we call the bread baked in a round shape, haven't we? Is it a bread cake, a roll, a barm, or a bap? The choice of vocabulary and grammar influenced by geographical regions or social contexts all refers to one thing, your dialect. Standard English, or SE, proper English, is widely regarded as the correct way of speaking and is therefore considered to be the most prestigious of all dialects. Be careful not to stereotype those who prefer to use a regional dialect as being less intelligent than SE users. In an exam, you might write the use of wrote instead of written suggests the writer has a or has been influenced by a northern dialect. And to finish this video then, we're going to have a little look at Sociolect. You might have heard of this one from your spoken language study at GCSE. Sociolect is the language used by a particular social group, and it's different to Idiolect and Dialect as this is completely dependent on social class, age, occupational or ethnic group. So what could you write in the exam? Let's see if this example stays on the screen. It does. Youth sociolect, well fit, and that's proper sad, is evident in the conversation between friends, and this use of covert prestige may be an attempt to exclude adults from the conversation. Sorry for the couple of technical errors, but I hope you found this useful. As I said, in the ebook, not only is everything in more detail, but there are lots of examples of excellent analysis, so do pick up a copy.